It's something of a cliche that the weather in England is gloomy and gray most of the time, so to show up at a wet and dreary Silverstone seems rather fitting. Get your wellies on. It's time to hunker down for the PCA Sim Racing Series 13 Pro Class, and you'll see it all live here on RaceSpotTV. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth tonight is Ewan O'Leary, along with our director, Ramiro Sonero, behind the scenes. We're thrilled to have Princess Cruises as the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 13, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 16 elegant ships, sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. PCA is also proud to announce they are celebrating their 70th anniversary in 2025. Here's to many more decades with North America's largest Porsche enthusiast group. Now, as we take a glance at the schedule, we're now smack dab in the middle of things, Ewan.
Yeah, so it's right with 3 rounds gone and 3 more to go after this one as well. And our variation in terms of circuits continues as well. Mosport 2 weeks ago was very interesting, but it's so different to Silverstone, which is a Grand Prix circuit, really returning to the likes of something like we've seen already at the Algarve, and we're going to see later on at the Hungaroring and Imola. I think this circuit, probably of the ones remaining, is a bit more similar to Road America, though. I think there's going to be a lot of decent overtaking chances around here. I've always rated the racing around this circuit very, very highly indeed. Maybe some home bias there, but I do think it is really good. And even in these Porsche GT3 cars, especially in a sort of same category race, if you like, it is always very exciting around this circuit, and I'm very much looking forward to this 4th round of the championship.
I think you're right. Definitely plenty of opportunities compared to the last 2 tracks to try and overtake. And, well, Justin Sang, who won last time out, is going to try and overtake Bryce Rodriguez. He's within 20 points now of that top spot. And then it's only another 20 back to Robbie Prescott. So things remain very tight up at the top of the championship. Kerry Brooks as well, about 30 more points back from them. So you can honestly count him in there. From there, it starts to drop a little bit more. Pies about 40 points down from Kerry Brooks. And then another 30 points down to Arthur Chan. Remember, they do get at least 1 drop week, so that is helping and influencing some of the points that you're seeing of these 3 rounds that they have already run. That, of course, is the driver's points, but why don't we take a look at the overall clean driver standings here, Ewan?
Yeah, Ken Eskridge and Chris Sherburn at the moment, the only 2 drivers to have picked up no incident points over the course of the first 3 rounds. Very, very impressive indeed. Alan Hales and Carlos Lopez only have 1 incident point each. Gilles Dupin, Joshua Jepson, Julian Velez and Joe Green and Robert Gallagher all have 2, and then Bryce Rodriguez has 3. I think that Bryce is the only of the pro drivers, correct me if I'm wrong, on that top 10 there with 3 incident points. Not too much to read into that, I wouldn't say, but I think it's all very impressive, actually. That means all of those guys have not had a single car contact. Some of these guys have. Bryce Rodriguez, Christopher Pies and David Fernandez are the 3 pros who are effectively tied for 10th, to be honest, in the clean driver standings.
Yeah, so there's the answer to your question. Bryce is the highest, and yes, he sits at 10th in the overall. So surprisingly, the pros having a little bit more trouble here in keeping the clean racing, but I guess you're pushing it to the limit like they do, and you're going to rack up a few off tracks here and there. So you do see most of our quickest drivers, though, at the top of it. So they are doing some of their best. Now, as for the track itself, as we heard Ewan mention, there are plenty of overtaking opportunities. You could see down into Village, which is turn 3 there. We've got Brooklands often sees chances to pass, as well as the end of the Hangar Straight into Stowe, and then sometimes down into Vale, through Vale and into Club. There, the chicane at the very end of the lap can sometimes offers things. You know, the thing that struck me about this layout, though, Ewan, I realized we have now been running this version of Silverstone about the same amount of time that we had the previous one, which was originally pulled out in the 90s.
Really?
Yeah, I know. It's like, oh gosh.
That's not really what I wanted to hear this evening, to be honest with you. But it's a good fact. So well done on that. But yeah, that's not really, that's not nice. Not nice to hear. You can actually, but for those who don't know, by the way, obviously I've been in real life. You can actually walk on the old part of the circuit these days. It's actually sort of just a path for pedestrians. You just walk to a different stand. It is certainly on some weekends anyway. So yeah, it still is around, but obviously not raced on anymore. Yeah, it's sort of become the norm now, hasn't it? Really, some people are now young enough to not even know about the older version. To be honest, we turn right, of course, here at turn number 1 instead of carrying on that tiny bit further and going left. I've got to say, much of this is a slightly controversial opinion. I do actually prefer this layout. I much prefer it actually. The fast-flowing corners through for 1 and 2 there are really great to drive, especially in a GT3 because it's actually quite challenging. Then through turn 3 is a good overtaking chance, as you were discussing before. Turn 4 is actually an even better chance into the loop. You can sort of dive it down the inside because you're trying to open out that corner. Look how wide it is from that camera shot there. You can really open it out, and that means you can have a stab down the inside as well, down at turn 4. So I actually like the new version more than the old one, but that's a bit controversial. We'll see if it does provide the racing that I'm hoping for through turns 3 and 4 tonight.
Yeah, no, I'm honestly with you because the old final sector was always just a bit too fiddly to me, and that's essentially all they've changed in this for the most part, which has given us some fantastic racing in real life. Let's hope that we get some good one here without the aero wash to worry about as much in these GT3R Cup cars, or not Cup cars, excuse me, these are the GT3Rs rather. But the 188 of Justin Sang, currently quick enough for 4th. He's on his last lap. Now, if you're watching this rain, it will not let up. It's not going to change for the race either. It'll be the exact same conditions during the entire race. So they won't have the variability to worry about, Ewan. However, that said, knowing where you've got the grip and where you don't, probably going to be important.
Yeah, it's always going to be a challenge, even if the conditions aren't changing here. The rain is still going to provide that challenge for you. I find the assists actually a real sort of barrier to driving well in the rain. Actually, in a GT3, you can find yourself really fiddling with the traction control. Well, is that too high now? Have I got that too low? There seems to be no happy medium with it. You're either sliding about with too low traction control, or it's really sort of tugging you backwards. Same with the ABS, really. It doesn't especially help you as much as it does in the dry. So very challenging in GT3 cars, I think, to drive in the rain. And this is as well a circuit, I think, which doesn't really suit GT3 cars very well anyway. The racing is always good, but I don't think in terms of, well, these cars weren't designed for this type of circuit, I don't think, really.
No, it's definitely much more made for Formula One, but I've seen sports cars put on a really good show at this track as Bryce Rodriguez, who just crossed the line, has taken the quickest lap of anybody at 2:12.6, but it's only about 2,000s faster than Justin Sang, who looks like he's already finished his 3 qualifying laps that are available. Checking down to see if there's anybody who hasn't set times or is likely to be jumping up, and I don't see anybody that look like they're likely to challenge for that.
Jonathan Waltman's the only driver I can see who's even got a lap left. The qualifying session at 10 minutes is not normally very constraining with getting all the laps in time, but actually because you've only got 10 minutes and you've only got 3 laps, that's a bit of a struggle to get them all in. Those were the drivers who left immediately, only just getting over the line in time by the end of the session, so it was a bit tight, but Bryce Rodriguez got there with the very last lap ahead of Justin Sang. 1 and 2 in the championship, 1 and 2 in this qualifying session.
I think that upset Justin Sang a bit, judging by the text chat in the sim right now. But there you see, Bryce Rodriguez going to be starting right next to Justin. Somebody can get a better start off the line. They could maybe have a chance to overtake for that top spot, though. Jesse Lyon going to be started in 3rd, with Kerry Brooks in 4th, and then Robbie Prescott starting in P5. From there, you've got Matthew Siddall on the outside of that 3rd row. Then it's Logan Grotto in 7th, and Jonathan Waltman starting in 8th. Chris Pye is good enough for 9th today as Arthur Chen all the way down in 10th. That's going to be a bit of work for him. 11th will go to Connor Fisk, and then Nicky Chan starts in 12th.
At 13th will be Kevin Jokel alongside Matthew Jokel. A nice bit of row 7 going on there. Leif Peterson and Lenny Holland will be sharing row 8 with Thomas Briggs and Thomas Ewing on row 9. A lot of rows with similar names going on here this afternoon for whatever reason. At 19th place, then a bit further down, is going to be Wang, followed by Sutton. And then outside the top 20, James Hoof and Klaus Nielsen, Brian Cowley and Christopher Cook round out the top 24.
Starting in 25th, it'll be Brett Holmes, followed by Joachim Baker in the 26th spot. Chad Henson, 27th, then Jason Finch in 28th. So slightly smaller field than some of the others that we've been seeing. And as we saw, it is a long lap. So not expecting traffic to be as much of an issue around here unless drivers do run into trouble getting caught up in spins and various problems out on the track. So as we watch the rest of warm-up, this is our first wet race of the season. Now, we had a couple last time out, so the drivers had practice, but I'm curious who has had a chance to really get used to this here in the sim, since it's still relatively new, Ewan.
Yeah, it feels like it's not been that long ago since the wet weather was added, but realistically, it's actually nearly a year ago now. And so drivers should be getting used to it, but that doesn't make it much easier. This is Bryce Rodriguez's pole lap. You just see the tiptoeing already going on through turn 1 and 2, although these corners are not particularly well suited to GT3 cars anyway, to be honest with you. They're not very high downforce machines. This is much more like it. Down on the brakes for turn 3 and then for turn 4, which you're going to just try and straighten out here, avoiding the curb on the outside to get the traction initially. Generally, you are going to be wanting to avoid the curve, but you are in places going to want to go over them, like there at Aintree. Watch how he doesn't go over the outside one there into towards the AstroTurf and the wet curve on the outside. That's very interesting and important to note. Down in towards Brooklyn. It's got to be later on the brake than you think here. For a very late apex, it sharpens up right there, just towards the end. Then you sort of keep it in the middle of the road before Luffield. You can sort of diamond this off if you like, or triangle this off, I should say. Dive for the first apex, then go wide, then dive for the second one. But again, avoiding the curbs, nearly, just about. You're going at high enough speed there by the time you get to the outside there at Luffield to get away with it. Then through Woodcut, which is not even a corner in these cars. Then towards Copse Corner. Many a famous moment down the years through here. And big commitment required in the GT3s as well. Even Rodriguez here on the pole lap, missing the apex there though. Not willing to go on the outside curb either. The high speed will certainly spin you around, perhaps into the outside wall. Then in towards Maggots and Beckett's, the iconic S's of this circuit. Through on the left, monitoring that left-hand side curb, and then on the right, then the left here, and then again on the right here through Chapel. Another important exit, although that one is a little bit easier than the exit of Luffield or Aintree, for example, or the Loop, because you are going at a higher speed to begin with. And so it's not quite as key, and this hanger straight does get clipped off quite quickly, given the speed you're going down here. In towards Stowe Corner, again, another later apex than you think it needs to be. There's the sharpening of it, and then you sort of let it drift out into the outside and on towards the curb, and then towards the final chicane here at Vale and Club. Just hit the apex on there. You want to get a bit closer to the left-hand side, really, but he's done the right-hand side pretty well. He'll avoid that curve again on the left-hand side on the outside. Again, get up on the curb there. On the inside, does so. It's fine to go over the curb right at the very end of the lap there, and over the line he goes. That was enough for pole, just about stealing it away from Justin Sang. And as you saw, there was definitely time left on the circuit there.
Yeah, very interesting. Out there as they've got a very cool track naturally with the wetness on it, 60 Fahrenheit, which is about 16 Celsius that they've got, which interestingly is cooler than the air temperature, not something we see on the pavement side as often. Usually I find that over on the dirt racing that happens, but thankfully no wind to speak of, so they're just going to have to deal with the lack of grip and not have to worry about the car being blown off the track as the warm-up finishes. We're going to be gridding up pretty soon. Let's not forget, they will also have a pit stop during this race for fuel, and that might be a talking point, especially considering it is something of a shorter pit lane in here compared to many tracks.
Yeah, you don't lose as much because you're going on the inside of the circuit, a little bit like Mosport last week or 2 weeks ago. You don't lose actually that much time going in pit lane, so you can get away with it a little bit more than what you might on other circuits this season. Still going to be one stop for absolutely everybody, though. As you say, the conditions are not going to change, so it's not going to be tyres you're going to be taking. In fact, instead of taking the 1 or 2 tyres you'd normally see during the pit stops in the dry weather conditions, they'll actually keep all 4 on just to retain the tyre temperature and keep the same tyres on throughout the race. Normally, you'd say this is a relatively high fuel burn circuit as well, so pit stop times would go up, but actually they'd be brought back down again by the rain, so they should be normal pit stop lengths, actually. If anything, actually slightly shorter than normal because of the rain. You spend less time on throttle, less time, therefore burning less fuel, and so it's a bit of a more fuel-efficient race and a shorter pit stop to come for everybody.
See the wipers on the cars. They will have to deal with visibility, especially in pack racing around here. So watch drivers maybe try to poke their nose out just to get a little bit of sight coming into some of the corners, especially early on as they try to get used to driving in the packs here. As we come out of Stowe Corner, it's going to be a very short pace lap at Silverstone. So the pace car will release Bryce Rodriguez to try and take home a victory here today, like he did in race 2 at Portimao. But that's the only time he's won so far. Justin Sang took the victory last time out. Can he maybe make it a 2 for 2 for himself as they come around the final corner, waiting for the call from the flag stand? It's going to be a relatively short run into Abbey, and then they have to weave through as the green flag is out. Somebody looking like maybe they had a bit of a moment there in the background with the car getting crossed up, and look at already all the spray into the faces as somebody gets tipped out to the outside, 2 cars sideways.
Justin Sang's been turned around as well from second place. Huge moment for the championship there as Justin Sang is turned around and put to the outside of the corner. It's a dream start for Bryce Rodriguez. His closest championship rival has fallen by the wayside, and he's held on to a comfortable lead. There was a big stack up as they even came to the line there. I'm surprised in some sense that everybody was able to avoid hitting the back of everybody else on the run down towards the line, but unfortunately it didn't remain through turn 1.
Prescott probably not too displeased about that either. Remember, he was only 40 points behind the lead coming into this one, and he now sits in second with clear sight to Bryce Rodriguez, our championship leader. Sang continues in what looks like about 23rd place, and still everybody trying to sort themselves out down into the Brooklands and Luffield section.
And quite apart from the actual positions lost, look how much time you end up losing in the wet weather conditions, having an early spin here. It's so damaging for your race. This is what happened in the mid-pack. That was someone in the middle there getting the braking wrong and smashing into somebody on the outside who would get collected. It was Connor Fisk, I'm afraid, who did start all of that. Also involved there will look to be the likes of Jonathan Watman, Jason Finch, James Hoofer have lost a lot of time as well. Not sure whether they're caught up in that incident itself or another one. Lenny Holland's off the back at the moment as well. So not sure which of those was involved in that actual incident, but I'm afraid it was certainly Connor Fisk getting the braking wrong in towards turn 1 that started it off.
Sounds like Kevin Jokel, though, is being given a black flag for a violation in the orange zone. Justin Sang, unfortunately, as you said, tipped around, but doesn't look like the car is damaged, so he's able to carry on. Those who do have too much damage to keep racing do have a spare car waiting for them in the pit lane, but that'll mean an extra trip down there. And James Huth winding up, unfortunately, off into the runoff with his biscuits, maybe a little bit more damp than he wanted.
And Jason Finch as well. I mentioned one of those drivers who spun around, just hit the back of the car in front through Luffield there on the opening lap and went to the inside. Kevin Jokel does indeed come to pit lane immediately, serving that drive-through penalty, but as you mentioned earlier, it's not actually going to hurt him quite as much as it would at the other circuits. He's quite close to pit exit already, so drops down a little bit further, but not too bad for him. He'll get away with that, and he will look to come back through the field. But as I mentioned earlier with Sang, the gaps get so large in the wet when there's trouble like this. Sang is already well over 15 seconds off of the lead, which he was side by side with going in towards turn 1, and it's only lap 2. It was Jesse Lyon, the one who spun him around.
Whether we'll see a penalty from Lyon as well, or if that'll be deemed a racing incident as we ride on board with Siddall here in 5th position. This is where things finally kind of close up at the front of the field, because you could see Rodriguez and Prescott are running away just a little bit in these early stages, getting themselves some breathing room. But Grotto, Brooks, Siddall, and Lyon, who you just mentioned, are in a bit of a battle. Did Sang have a secondary incident?
Seems he did. Got turned around at the final chicane. Justin Sang, this is going from bad to worse for him. Eric Sutton, meanwhile, has been tipped around as well. That was in towards Aintree. Watch out, everybody. He does just get himself to the outside of the circuit. Thankfully, it was Thomas Ewing on the inside who tipped him into a spin.
Well, this has certainly been a bit messy to kick things off. We'll see if the drivers can buckle down. Oh, and Jesse Lyon does indeed have a penalty hanging over him. Thomas Ewing also making a bit of contact coming out of Aintree onto the Wellington Straits.
Yeah, that was the contact with Sutton from the onboard. So he kind of boxed himself into a corner there, really. He ended up taking such a tight line that contact was inevitable, but he could have avoided that in the first place with some manoeuvring, I should say, earlier on in the lap. Not able to do it though, and he gets into contact, might get himself into trouble with that a little bit later on as well. We saw a very clean race at Mosport, to be honest, between the pro drivers. Unfortunately, already a couple of incidents, a couple of drive-through penalties being served already here. Jesse Lyon into the pit lane this time round, and he will drop to the midfield, I would expect. Not all the way back, because it's a short pit lane, as we've discussed, barely outside the top 10, in fact, as he now comes to a stop. This is going to cost him a top 10 place, but he'll get back going again pretty shortly, and he'll have some work to do.
We come back to the number 3 of Logan Grotto, still leading this group. Kerry Brooks and Siddall behind him. Chris Pies gets promoted to 6th thanks to Jesse Lyon's penalty, but he's got a little bit to make up to catch up to that trio just in front of him. So once again, we head down into Brooklands. The drivers all trying to size up their braking point, as this is one of the heaviest braking zones, and that was a bit of a lunge almost, it looked like, from the car of Kerry Brooks.
Here again, loads of different lines through Brooklands and Luffield, even in the dry conditions. Just imagine what it's like in these wet weather conditions now as you're trying to find the grip here. It is a fascinating couple of corners to go through here, and Logan Grotto at the moment holding on to that 3rd place at the expense of Kerry Brooks. Grotto has not finished on the podium yet this season, has DNF to his name, unfortunately, at Daytona, so every point from here counts for him. Kerry Brooks currently 4th place in the championship after missing Daytona, but has been on the podium already back at the Algarve round number 2 of this season, so certainly knows how to do it, and he's looking for a way through here, through Maggots and Beckett's. His line is a bit better, shaping himself up for an exit now through Chapel. That is a good exit.
Looks like he's got him on the ropes a little bit. Grotto, will he defend? Coming up into Stowe. So far, he's leaving the door open, but it doesn't seem like Brooks is able to reel him in close enough to really try anything, although he's going to have a tighter line down to the apex a little bit earlier. Again, the door is shut. Logan just making sure that Kerry can't really do anything at this stage. And once again, no chance down into the Vale chicane. But the more they battle, the more they're going to allow that light blue car of Matthew Siddall to gain. So they want to make sure that they don't fiddle around too much up there. I think they have to make a decisive move.
Yeah, exactly. Although I think the gap's going to go out anyway, to be honest. You almost might as well battle, because the guys up front are going to continue to stretch out the margins anyway. You've got to sort of divide all the gaps by 2, if you like, if you want a realistic look at how they actually are, because the wet weather conditions means that the gaps are about twice as big as they normally would be. Anyway, we're going to see some very big time gaps at the end of this race, and quite a lot of drivers a lap down even around here, and certainly some big gaps inside the top 10. So if you're looking to compare it to dry conditions, then you need to basically divide it by 2. Further down in the field, it is all going on. That's Connor Fisk working his way back through on the bottom of his green past Jochen Backer that time round.
After he lost so many early on here, he's got some work to do, and he's going to have even more work to do. He's now been given a penalty as well. My goodness, it's an absolute slew of them. I think that's our 4th that we've already received, and we're only on lap 4. Stewards have been busy.
Is that Connor Fisk, you mean?
Yeah, Fisk has one.
Yeah, I thought so. I would imagine that's for turn 1, where he went straight into the side of somebody when he was in the middle of 3 wide. I do think that was his fault, and so he's going to have a penalty as a result of that. Jonathan Watman was one of those who got knocked back early on. He's up to 20th place, though, already, as about 3 drivers have already come into pit lane for some fairly long stationary times, by the way. Joker, Lyon and Hoof down at the back of the field, so he's made up a few places from that, but now he's looking at a top 20. He's on the back through Cops of Baker, and he's not going to manage it just about in towards the S's.
Not quite this time, although a little bit tidier through the first stage. Like you said, everybody trying to set themselves up for the exit, though, where you need that launch off the corner, off the second to last apex there for Waltman, and then doesn't really get the speed he needs coming down the straight. Drivers either trying to break the slipstream or just trying to get themselves some clear vision.
It's very difficult to find when you're in the spray, even in these sort of drying conditions, which we're not going to get here, but even if it was, you know, the spray still kicked up by iRacing is very significant, and you really can't see where you're going when you are following in behind somebody else, as Thomas Ewing comes in to serve his penalty, and Conor Fisk as well coming in right now. Yeah, it's really, really difficult. That's part of the weaving around you'll see. It's just for visibility. So there go those two in towards pit lane. I think we've already equalled the number of penalties from Mosport in the first 10 minutes of this race.
It's starting to feel like it. At least one of them coming down to a stop. Both of them actually going to take their service, but I don't think they're going to be able to get to the finish from here. In fact, yeah, they definitely won't be able to get to the finish at this stage. So they will owe us at least one more pit stop as Kerry Brooks continues to really hassle Logan Grotto for that third position. Just hasn't been able to do anything quite yet. He's keeping the pressure on. I think with so much time left in the race, that's really the main goal right now.
Still, a very long way to go. Survival is going to be quite a big part of this. Staying out of the steward's room, staying out of the incidents, and staying out of trouble is going to be very key indeed. The drivers who manage that are going to be up towards the top. I mean, so far, actually, other than the car-on-car incidents, we haven't seen mistakes from individuals. Now, that could change over the course of an hour, because it is a long time to drive in the wet weather without making any mistakes. However, so far, everybody's done a pretty good job of keeping it on the road, which is sounds, like the bare minimum around here, but it is actually very important in wet weather conditions.
And at a very fast track like this as well. Yeah, that can be harder than you'd think, especially if you're used to the dry grip that this car tends to give. But down the hanger straight once again, and still Brooks unable to really find the speed that he needs. You can see, while it is going to continue to sprinkle, we are getting a bit of a drier line happening out on the racing line. So I wonder how that's going to affect the cars, especially on these wet weather tires. And maybe that is a part of what we're seeing with the drivers diving out of the toe of the cars ahead. I wonder if they are trying to get just a little bit of cooling on the tires here.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know quite what the situation with those tires is going to be. Based on the track conditions we saw before the race, I don't think tyre temperature is going to be a particular problem, but I could be wrong. Side by side me. Oh, Justin Sang in another bit of contact. That's Lenny Holland this time on the outside. That's the third time in 12 minutes. Justin Sang has either been hit or hit someone else, depending on your viewpoint. And he's up to 19th at least, but goodness me, he's been in trouble so far.
Made up a few positions, some of those due to the penalties, but it seems like he is having trouble getting back to the front. And I'm not too shocked, because we've seen how frequently the pace is just so close up and down the field. I'm sure if you lose that track position in the pro class, it is a nightmare to try and make it back up.
It is. It's a very, very long way back indeed, but it, can be done. Thomas Briggs has shown that you can do it. 10 places gained, although a lot of that will have been at the start, of course, where positions are a bit easier to gain, but nevertheless, good job from him. This is the contact. Does Lenny Holland go into Sang or the other way around? Can't really tell, to be honest with you. Sang was off the road at the end of it, which is probably worth noting. Maybe that tells a bit of a story. Seems like one of those harmless ones that they'll both get over pretty quickly.
I can't imagine that doesn't look like it really deserves any sort of penalty, or at least I hope it doesn't at this stage. The stewards have a better chance to look at it, so we'll see whether or not they decide it needs any sort of reprimand. But Matthew Siddall back here in 5th position was relatively close to Kerry Brooks. No more. He's dropped off by about 2 seconds. Chris Pies instead seems to be the one that is moving forward. He's caught up to within about half a second, and he's starting to become ever closer in the mirror.
He's lurking. He's approaching. He's on his way at the moment. It's certainly notable, actually, the way some of these drivers take off at the start of these races, and some people just aren't very comfortable at all when they begin. Thomas Ewing there, showing maybe he's not one of the more comfortable ones. Far too fast in towards turn 3 that time round. He goes for a big spin, and he gets himself back onto the circuit again, but you could see that was too late on the brakes right from the off, really.
It really was that time round for him, unfortunately, almost fully around, and he'll get it back going at least. So we watch them just absolutely send it through the Maggots and Beckett sequence once again. Siddall keeping Pies at about the distance we saw before. Probably his main focus at this stage. Excuse me, that wasn't Beckett's and Beckett's. That was coming up through the opening sequence through Avian Farm. So we're just starting the lap for these two. And we're getting to about a quarter of the way through the race. So we're going to take the opportunity to mention that we're thrilled to have Princess Cruises as the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 13, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 16 elegant ships sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. We've already made it through 1/4 of this one as we ride on board with Kerry Brooks, with a view there of Logan Grotto in front of us. And much like in real life here in the sim, you have that rain light to kind of tell you where that car is in front of you, even with the spray blasting the windscreen.
It doesn't do a whole lot for your visibility. It does tell you where the car in front is, and that's it's obviously a good thing, but it doesn't tell you much about the surroundings and where you are on the circuit, which is what you really need to know when you're in the spray, because you can't really see where you're going. You just end up almost trusting the driver in front of you, almost following them, sort of in their wheel tracks, and that's where overtaking can get difficult in wet weather conditions. You're so focused on survival and following that red light up in ahead that you can't take the different lines that you normally need to actually overhaul the driver in front of you. It's very difficult to get past a driver doing exactly the same thing as them, and that's the problem you get in these wet weather conditions. Although having said that, Kerry Brooks doesn't quite look like he's quick enough to go through on Logan Grotto at the moment anyway, even if he is certainly quick enough to stay with him.
At times he's been getting close and then he starts to fall away. So I wonder if it is that trouble with getting so close to the car that he can't do much more because he's starting to lose sight of various aspects. Now ride on board with Arthur Chan, number 50, currently sitting in 8th position. That's Thomas Briggs in front of him, like you said, having a tremendous run here today. Let's hope that he doesn't lose one. And in fact, we can see exactly what the driver can see here. And visibility doesn't look too horribly bad, but this is a slower section.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say, hope we stay on board here for the high speed towards the end of the hangar straight, and then tell me how much you can see. Even through Aintree, just as they've got up to 3rd gear there, you can barely see. And now look, the car's completely gone out of sight, and it's only less than half a second away. He's following the slipstream and the spray. And there you go. He's down towards Brooklands, trying to spot his own braking point, which is very difficult. Tell you another thing that's very distracting, by the way. You just need to have some sort of last lap relative on the board that's changing round very quickly indeed. That would be very distracting for me, but clearly he wants to know to the precise hundredths of a second just how slow he's going in some parts.
Unfortunately, that was a very slow Brooklands because he was way off the apex, sitting it in a bit too deep there. So he'll lose a fraction of the time to Thomas Briggs for the time being. As we check it back in once again on the battle for P3. It's been just kind of teasing us all race long so far. It's been close, but we haven't really seen Brooks do much other than a poke here or there to see if he can maybe get a line in, but none have really worked up to this stage. So maybe he is really just kind of backing off, trying to play his race out, see what comes to him later on. There is something to be said for patience in racing.
Yeah, there certainly is, especially in these conditions. You'll learn that very quickly. If you're driving in one of these races, hour long, same. Oh, big piece of the miss of the braking point there for Brooks. My goodness me, that's exactly the problem you have in the spray. It's all well and good following the driver in front, but you've got to sort of almost muscle memory your own braking points, and if you can't do it, then you can end up in big trouble. Brooks there, very nearly. Absolutely smashed into Logan Grotto. They were both nearly in very damaged Porsches there.
Certainly relieved, I'm sure, especially because now Logan's got a much bigger gap back to Kerry Brooks. So we'll have to keep an eye and see if Kerry can actually manage to catch him back up. And yeah, that looked way closer from that angle that time.
I mean, it was almost like he didn't realise he'd broken too late either, because again, he can't see where he's going. So you're braking where you think is normal. He was still turning in for the corner, almost following the red light, as we've been talking about. What he nearly did was follow Grotto straight as if it was a planned attack. And thankfully, he didn't quite get into the back of him, but goodness me, that was close. And a big misjudgment. Brooks now has got some work to do to get back onto the back of the number 3 car.
Once again with Briggs, Chan, and then now we've got, looks like Peterson, Nicky Chan, and then Wang also kind of closing up on this group. Wonder if Briggs, now that he's got the spots, is going to find himself creating a bit of a train throughout this race. He'll have to pick it up, no doubt, if he wants to try and keep from feeling immense pressure with a lot of cars. Battle for 20th side by side. Lenny Holland versus Eric Sutton down into Brooklands, and Sutton on the inside almost gets the job done, but it's going to switch to the outside in the left field, tries to cut back, gives just enough space. That is tremendous trust. And Holland to take the line that he thought he was going to take. Some wheel spin will deny Sutton, though.
Yeah, Holland's got a very, very battered Porsche, and so any attempts to hold Sutton back here, I think, is rather delaying the inevitable, especially since Sutton went for that spin at Aintree earlier, again through Copse. That Porsche is missing a lot of the front end, which is probably making it push with understeer quite badly here. And so he's got to just manage this for the moment, and Sutton's got to find a way through at all costs almost here as quickly as he possibly can, because Lenny Holland is a bit of a moving chicane at the moment with the damage he's got on that car. Now a better line through Chapel. This should be the moment. He should have better traction here, slipstream, and a chance at Stowe corner maybe.
Yeah, this is very close, but if he messes this up, look back behind him. That's the 001 of Joachim Baker, who is potentially going to try and pick up the pieces. Early braking from Eric Sutton. He doesn't trust himself this time, I think.
Well, this time, Joachim Baker is driving the 001 just in behind them as well. He has a look. And no, not for the moment, in towards the final chicane. So they'll all stay behind Holland for the moment. This is further upfield in the battle for 14th place. Ryan Cowley ahead of Christopher Cook and Jonathan Waltman. Cook was on screen quite a lot on Sunday, by the way, in the Porsche Club America Team Racing Series. He was in the battles, and he's in one again here, down the inside, down at turn 4. The loop, that was very well executed. It's exactly what I was talking about earlier on. Ryan Cowley going wide to open out the corner, do the corner effectively on the racing line, but that does leave you quite exposed.
It's about to get very interesting coming down into Brooklands. Waltman close behind. Cowley does not defend. He could try to pull the inside, but he's going to leave the door open, knowing he needs this wider line down into this decreasing radius corner, and he will hold on to the spot. By the way, fans of Eric Sutton, unfortunate news. He did have a spin, hit the wall, took some significant damage. So he will lose some spots and probably find himself needing to come in for that free car, that spare car here in just a moment, as this battle continues for 14th. Cook, Cowley, and Waltman here almost to halfway through the race now.
And also, by the way, down the field, Thomas Ewing and Connor Fisk, I don't know if you mentioned it already, have both retired from the race, according to my screen anyway. So they are, unfortunately, early retirements from this one. Jonathan Waltman, looking on Cowley there, but not able to do it. It does seem that Ryan Cowley is up a bit higher than his pace really suggests he should be at the moment. That's nothing bad against him particularly, which means he's been defending a little bit early on. There's nothing wrong with that at the moment. Waltman now will have another chance on the hanger straight here and towards Stowe corner. He'll have a look, but he won't go for it this time round. Cowley will hang on again, but he clearly hasn't got the speed to cope with those around him. Cook got through, and he's already quite a long way ahead.
We have already had a couple DNFs, unfortunately. Connor Fisk and Thomas Ewing both out of this race. Looks like I just saw a car duck into pit lane, trying to make out who that was. Justin Sang, it looks like, which makes sense. Justin slightly out of position here, probably trying to do something different to those around him.
I don't blame him at all for that one. I really don't. He needs to, I think, get out of traffic, get out of all of the troubles he's been in so far in this race, and that pit stop and this pit stop will do that for him. There's no bad thing about coming in this early, even in the dry. He will make it home on fuel. Because it's raining, the fuel window is even larger, so in effect anyone could come in. But Justin Sang's so far down the field that he's more likely to come out in clean air. Having said that, Kevin Jokel is not far ahead of him, so he might not have got the clean air he was really hoping for.
Yeah, that is unfortunate. And that's a good point. I didn't even think about that the slower pace with the rain will open up that pit window quite a bit. So, yeah, I'm curious how far along we'll see the drivers going. And Joachim going a little bit too far into Vale, and thankfully gets it stopped. Almost gets hit by another car that maybe sent it a little too deep as well. Thankfully, it looks like the law will get away with it. Here's Eric Sutton's incident, though. And, it's the curb.
Oh, and back hard to avoid him as well, but that inside wall, so easy to get into, even in the dry, to be honest. If you hit the inside curb, if you hit it in the wet, you've absolutely had it. And unfortunately, Eric Sutton has had a lot of damage to the front end. It was Lenny Holland, by the way, who nearly came through and smacked Joachim Bakker by going deep into this corner here, down on that last lap. Holland certainly doesn't need any extra damage on the front end of his car. As Kerry Brooks gets into pit lane now, he's going in very quickly. I hope he got that stopped in time as he makes his pit stop with 35 minutes to go.
Kerry was battling with Logan, so again, I see a driver maybe trying to use that undercut, but there are some dangers with running into traffic and having to try and pass cars. As we got, I thought we were going to have a battle down into the Vale chicane, but no, this is shockingly early for a lot of drivers to come in.
Surely that was too quick, wasn't it? Or we just a long way away and it looked quicker.
Right. He's got a black flag.
That just looked miles too quickly, to be honest. I wouldn't be surprised if he was going double the speed limit at the line, and I'm not exaggerating. That looks really too quick. Kerry Brooks seems to have gotten away with it. Clearly, he was not going too quickly on the way in. His stop was 12.8 seconds. Is shorter, a couple of steps longer than Justin Sangs, who's the only other driver who's really made a representative pit stop. This is the problem, though. When you're in the lead, or the leaders, you are likely to come out in traffic, and that's exactly what's happened to Kerry Brooks here.
Yeah, I checked, and it was 10 miles over the speed limit, 10 miles per hour over the speed limit for Ryan Cowley at the line. So, yeah, he had maybe overestimated his stopping power as we go side by side between Brooks and Nielsen after that pit stop for Brooks. So he is also going to suffer a little bit of traffic. This is not going to help his strategy. Battle carries on behind him. Chris Cook versus Klaus Nielsen. Klaus just getting ganged up on because now Jonathan Waltman is also there.
Yeah, Cook has gone through. Waltman just waiting in the wings. Cook going slightly defensive, half defensive, down the inside on the way towards Copse Corner. And then you've got Waltman who's in line as well. But Nielsen's not been having a good few corners, and when it rains, it pours, because Waltman is he's having a look on the way towards Magnus and Beckett, but knows there's no chance really to go side by side through there. They'll follow on another instead. This is Ryan Cowley on board. We saw it off board, but this is going to give you an idea. This was not close.
Yeah. And you could hear it still decelerating way past the cones. I think Ryan probably knew even before he hit that line what was going to happen. Ooh, another big look down the inside from Jonathan Waltman on Klaus Nielsen. Klaus will hold him back, but there's another chance coming into Vale. What's going to happen for Jonathan? He stays on the racing line and decides it's not worth it at this stage, but he's certainly doing everything he can to distract the 04.
He certainly is. That's all you can do sometimes in one of these battles. You can get a little bit stuck from time to time. So just get in the mirrors, show yourself a little bit. Eric doing it again towards turn one. It's partly about showing yourself, partly about seeing where you're going. So these cars will benefit from that. These drivers will benefit from that. Now Waltman will have a look down the inside at turn three, but he's not late enough on the brakes. Didn't fancy being brave enough down on the brakes there, because if you do get it wrong, you go straight into the side of the car on the outside, and you will find yourself with a penalty. So he was just a little bit careful there. Now Waltman will try and get the exit again, not quite able to do it.
Out of Aintree onto the Wellington straight. He got a decent run, but doesn't look like it's good enough. They're going to run out of straightaway by the time they hit the binders once again. He'll still show them, or at least try to give himself some view, and has to eventually give it up. Are we back with Siddall? Yes, indeed we are. Chris Pies is caught up even more. Now it's down to 0.3 of a second. It's been a long, hard slog for Chris, but he's doing everything he needs to do to get closer and continue to pressurize the 19.
Absolutely. This is starting to go the way of Chris Pies, really. It's just plugging away rather than seeing the gap crashing down. Now we're just over half an hour to go. the pit stop games are certainly going to start to begin, but after seeing where Kerry Brooks came out, I don't know if these guys will have seen, but if they have, they'll certainly not be encouraged by what happened to him. Getting stuck in traffic is not where they want to be as well, so they, I'd imagine, will stay out longer. Will they? Yes. I thought it was going to be proved wrong instantly. They do stay out. Siddle hangs on from Payes at the moment, but this is the battle for fourth place at the moment. I think should be fifth later, but you know, if they work together, they might actually jump Brooks.
Oh, look at this though. Brooks is actually having to fight with Chris Cook, who has not pitted yet, and Chris is not letting that stop him from trying to get the position back, which is probably even more of an annoyance for Kerry now that he's already gotten by. Thought probably should have been done with that and carried on. He's got about 4 seconds up to Matt Jokel, so he should have the clear air to try and put some good laps in, but you can't do that when you're defending.
No. It's a lot more difficult when you're going side by side. We always talk about this in the dry, but actually in the wet, the lines when you're battling are even slower in comparison to the normal lines. So you've got to be very, very wary of that indeed in these conditions. Brooks, I think, has just got a bit unlucky with it, with where he's come out. It's a bit of a lesson, really. When you're running up front, you've got to wait for some of the midfield to come in before you do. You've got to wait for it to clear out a bit, so there are some pockets of clean air. Otherwise, you'll spend your time going from stuck behind somebody in third place to stuck behind somebody in 23rd.
This is almost becoming a complete write-off for Justin Sang as well. I know we're still watching Brooks here, but I was taking a glance on my screen over at Justin. He's still stuck behind Kevin Jokel as well. He's been battling, it feels like, every single time we take a look at him. So I fear Justin probably won't be able to do much, even with the alternate strategy.
It looks like it's going to be a pretty miserable race, to be honest, for Justin Sang. He hasn't got a brilliant drop week to fall back on either, to be honest, from Portimao. I don't know where he finished. I think it was just inside the top 10, but this is going to become his drop round with Bryce Rodriguez out front and winning the race at the moment. This is really damaging for him. He's over a minute off the lead at the moment.
And consistency so important. And what's happened with Chad Henson? Cars very close together coming into, is this Maggots or Beckett's or Abby? Yeah, this is Maggots Beckett's. Going to get it right this time. And look at it, contact. In fact, there is contact, and one car having to scatter to avoid, and Chad facing the wrong way and eventually getting absolutely clobbered by somebody there.
Yeah, Jesse Lyon was the one arriving on the scene there in the orange. The driver who'd spin him around, I'm fairly sure, was Justin Sang. I'm pretty sure that was the 188 of Justin Sang there. So he had got ahead of Jokel at one stage, but after the incident, he'd unfortunately, that's a bad rejoin from Henson, really bad rejoin. And Lyon has ended up in the gravel on the outside. That's ended 2 races.
Probably should have been looking at the relative box, but at the same time, I also feel for him because I don't know where he could have gone at that point in the track and not been sort of
nowhere.
Not in the way of somebody at that stage. Anyways, as we look at the 19 car of Matthew Siddall once again, he gets himself a little bit farther away from Chris Payes once more. So the battles have had this sort of back and forth for us. They seem to get close from just when we think things are going to start to get exciting. They fall apart once again. Yeah,
they do a little bit. I mean, these guys up front have got to be grateful that they are running up front here, and they're not stuck in the back like Justin Sang and Jesse Lyon, who have clearly got quick cars, but are languishing well outside the top 20 in the case of Jesse Lyon, who's now got a very long repair job to do, unfortunately, to that car. And I imagine there'll be a penalty coming Henson's way, if there hasn't been already. So that will be served at some point. For him as well. It's certainly not a good rejoin on that occasion, but it is starting to settle down out front here. They look like the front 5 anyway, front 3 look like they're going to just go for the running long strategy rather than pitting early like Justin Sang and Kerry Brooks did. They're in clean air, they're on lower fuel. I don't think they see any reason to come in at the moment, especially since none of the top 5 are really stuck behind anybody else at the moment.
Also, I want to give a quick mention to Rodriguez and Prescott because we haven't really been showing them much. And Well, that's because they are 11 seconds ahead of third place Logan Grotto, or at least Prescott is. Make that 15 for Bryce Rodriguez. They have been running unbelievable pace compared to the rest of the field. Remember, we're only just about halfway through. And yeah, that is the point at which both those races were pretty much over.
That front left suspension of Chad Henson's car especially was taking a beating there. Came under attack from the entirety of Jesse Lyon's car. There's a real intricate look at a Porsche, if you ever wanted to have a look. There you go. It's more exposed than normal, unfortunately, and it's the end of Jesse Lyon's day. Came into today 16th place in the championship with no start at Daytona. He's really relying on the points from all of the rounds on their own. Unfortunately for him, he finished way down the field at Mosport as well. This is becoming a season to forget for him.
Sometimes that's just the way things go in racing. You have seasons like that. And I actually have seen a lot of under the hood of Porsches, but usually, or at least hopefully not in that fashion. As we get to the middle part of the race, we do want to give a quick mention that we're thrilled to have Princess Cruises as the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 13, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 16 elegant ships sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. All right, 24 minutes left to go. Should see maybe a few more drivers pit in, but they should be able to go quite long. Chad Henson with more issues. This time a self-spin.
Yeah, he's used his fast repair. He's got back out onto the circuit again. And unfortunately, he has spun around again. He's still running down in 24th position at the moment. I think prior to that crash, by the way, Jesse Lyon had used his fast repair already. I can't entirely remember what it was on, but he seems to have already used it. And so he's repairing his car. It's just going to take a long time because of the crash that we saw. Meanwhile, side by side here for 11th, as Kerry Brooks is still trying to find himself past drivers he really didn't need to be getting involved with this afternoon. He's now on the back of Matthew Jokel in the 26 car out of the final corner. Where's Chris Pye's going to get himself involved in this as he gets himself out wide into the curb and all that rubbish on the outside line. It looks like Pye's will still be behind Brooks, and that's a minor miracle, really, considering the amount of time Brooks will have lost.
Yeah, it's not been playing out, but I guess you can't really be too upset if you wind up in the same position you were before, as Pies is actually going to be split by Cook as well, so he's going to have to overtake Chris just to try and catch up to Kerry, which will not help his attempts to try and chase him down, no doubt. But Kerry Brooks just flummoxed on how to overtake the number 26, stuck behind Matthews' black car as he just defends slightly, coming down into there. Late braking. Is he going to be able to make this one stick as Brooks gets to the inside? He can try and chop him off coming into Luffield, and he manages it.
He does. Good pass. And he came a few corners too late, but eventually executes well on the way in towards Brooklands, and now holds a top 10 position again. It is only going to be for the reward, as you were saying, of retaining the place you were in before, and he won't be too mad about it, but I think he was hoping for a bit of an undercut on Grotto. He seemed at times to be quicker than in the battle for third place. That has not transpired to go too well, though, by pitting early, and so Brooks now moves ahead of Jokel in position only, or track position only, not really for a realistic position a little bit later on. Top 10 now for him, and finally he might get a bit of clean air until everybody else pits in finally.
And honestly, Logan out there has been running a pretty good race and is in clear air, so he's got nothing to worry about as we get another driver down into pit lane here. That's going to be Arthur Chan, who's up in our top 10. A surprising amount of our top 10 drivers in what should be a much more open race for the pit strategy. Trying to take there, as you can see, the difference in elevation change that happens along the front straight compared to the pits.
It's very weird, isn't it? I don't know another circuit in the world that does that, by the way. You have to take stairs upwards to the circuit again when you're on the inside like that. Very odd. But you'll notice by the rise you have on the way out of pit lane, it's actually a really dangerous moment in non-traction control cars. You can spin up the rears, especially in the wet, and spin out immediately onto the racetrack in the middle of turn one, which is not ideal. But not in these cars particularly. You won't be too worried about that, especially if you're retaining the tyres you've already got on, which all of these drivers should be doing. Your wet tyres are not going to wear out, particularly over the course of an hour. And those are the more worrying stats. Only 8 o'clock in the morning. It's only 19 degrees Celsius on the circuit. I think that's only in the 80s, is it, Fahrenheit? It's maybe less, and it's very cold, so you don't really want to be going for another tyre warm-up phase like you did at the start of the race.
Yeah, it's about 66 Fahrenheit currently on the track itself. So yeah, it is very, very cold on the track surface. It's actually warmed up. It started about 60, so I think on the racing line, it's probably taken some heat into it. Most likely, as we check back with Chris Cook, is he once again in a bit of a battle with Pies having pitted? No, looks like Chris is still well behind him at this stage. Honestly, the best that Chris can hope for is that, well, that Chris Pies can hope for is that Chris Cook will pit in a little bit earlier than maybe he needs to, and will get out of his way.
They should bang some heads together and decide who gets to keep the name, I think, at least while they're here. Anyway, especially where they're running nose to tail like this, which hasn't happened too long this season. But anyway, 11th and 12th at the moment for these two. As Cook now runs his way with Pies in tow up towards Stowe Corner. And what is actually one of the biggest groups on the circuit, really. Everybody waiting in this group, everybody waiting for Cook to come in, really. And not this time round. Carries on again as Lee Peterson, meanwhile, comes in from the top 10.
Do love this paint on Peterson's car. I was noticing it before. Really cool use of the spec maps on this machine with the metallic. But as he gets in and takes his fuel, and he is taking tires. He's up on the jacks. Okay,
that's something I wouldn't have expected you to do. I mean, the tyre warm would be horrific with the uneven corners. Whether he's taken one or two, I'm not sure, but I'm not sure it makes it any better. Unless he's really wearing through the fronts or the rears or something. I can't really see a benefit to that particularly. You don't really load a side particularly around Silverstone. It actually does bend to the right and the left quite evenly across the high-speed corners. Maybe slightly on the left side, but down one side you don't see too bad wear. It's really on the rears and the fronts you'd be worried about, especially in the wet. But again, I'm surprised that they'd bother taking them. I wouldn't like the feeling of that at all.
I almost wonder if that was a mistake that he had left them on. And yeah, and essentially you can turn it off and only wind up getting one tire or something like that. But that can often make it worse, although you may not lose the time that you are trying not to in the process. As we check back in with the battle for 10th between Cook and Pies once more. This is down the old main pit straight past what is now the support pits and through Copse Corner. Very fast right-hand flick, but then it's a short burst coming up to the Maggots Beckett sequence as we ride on board with Pies, looking forward, seeing whether or not he's going to have to try and overtake the 25 before he finally comes in for fuel.
I think maybe not now, actually. The two leaders are in, which suggests we're very close to the fuel limit. Rodriguez, Prescott, Gredo all in from the lead of the race, and that does suggest, especially in Rodriguez's case, that we are towards the end of the fuel window anyway here. We'll see whether the others follow in or whether they've been able to go a bit further, the likes of Chris Cook in the 25 car, whether he's been able to get a few more laps out of the tank just up in front of him. Looks like Matthew Joker's in. Cook does stay out. That's not good news for Chris Pies. There goes Matt Siddle. He's going to carry on one more time round. So does Thomas Briggs. He'll get ahead, but Bryce Rodriguez gets into the lead of those who stopped. A very conservative pit stop. 17 seconds, making absolutely sure he's got the fuel.
Interesting. Again, I kind of wonder if that's a mistake, because he had a buffer, but it was about 5 seconds over Robbie Prescott. So yeah, okay, so Prescott was about 15 seconds. So both of them actually going a bit long in comparison. Here we go. Is this Brooks again?
Yeah, Brooks and Grado. So it has actually, he'll be filthy about the traffic he came out in, by the way, because he would have been miles ahead otherwise. He's still right on the back of Grado, despite all of those battles and being held up for so long. And this is why, because getting up to speed is a bit of a palaver when you've refueled again with 16 minutes to go. Brooks is going to try and take advantage of that because he's up to speed, his tyres are warm, and he's ready to go. Round the outside through Brooklands, gives you the inside at Luffield. This is going to be a very nice move, but equally, Grado is holding on round the outside through Luffield. He's not going to do it though. First lap out the pit lane, and Kerry Brooks has still managed to jump him in the pit stops.
Fantastic from the 177, not letting anything stop him, but he's probably got a battle on his hands because pretty shortly Logan's tires are going to start to get up to temperature, and he's still very close behind that purple and black machine coming through Copse Corner, trying to hold on to as close as he can for a chance maybe to pass down to the Stowe.
Towards Magnussen Beckett's first, and there's the line, there's the difference. Maybe it is opening lap out the pit lane that's throwing Grado off. Maybe it is the first time following someone this closely since lap one. Don't forget, he's been the leader of the group. He's been in third place and having first and second a long way ahead of him for most of this race. He hasn't experienced the spray for a good 40 minutes now.
It's a good point. Yeah, he's not had to have the low visibility that maybe those around him have gotten used to at this stage. By the way, it looks like Siddall and Briggs, who stayed out, have now pitted, so Rodriguez will inherit the lead back. And while his lead was 5 seconds, it's down to about 2. So it has changed a bit, but again, not worth worrying about if you're him, knowing that he can get to the finish of this race relatively easy. Just surprised at how much more he took, because most of the drivers look like they're in about the 13-second range.
Yeah, it is interesting to see the differences. Bryce Rodriguez with the longest by some distance, really, of those who've realistically done normal pit stops. Lenny Holland hasn't. I imagine the amount of damage he had further down has played a role in that one, so I'm going to ignore those outside the top 20. But yeah, Bryce Rodriguez by a long way longest. Robbie Prescott by a long way second longest. Don't really know why. Can't quite get to the bottom of that. Again, I think, to be honest, it might just be being really safe, making sure they've absolutely got the fuel to go all the way home, but I don't really know.
Another interesting one as I'm watching the times of cars emerging.
It's not going to cost
Briggs. Briggs came out very close ahead of Chris Pye. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. I was coming to the end anyway. This is that battle. Don't really know why Pies is slipping and sliding all of a sudden the way he is, but let's see if he can come back again here in this battle for 6th place. He's got not too far behind, by the way, Arthur Chan in 8th as well, just inside the top 10. They leave Peterson, Nicky Chan all inside the 30 seconds of the lead at the moment inside the top 10.
So as we exit out of Copse, Chris Pye's not going to be happy about this one, but Thomas Briggs, that'll give him one more. He's up 11 now on this race. Just doing phenomenal. And as they head through Maggots and Beckett's, he's going to have a lot of pressure from Chris Pies. In fact, Pies gets a great exit out of Chapel and onto the hangar straight. Will he have a chance to make a move into Stowe?
He certainly will. Briggs even pulls it over to the right-hand side, making sure that Pies can't take the right-hand side, and he's still going to go for it anyway. Well, Briggs thought he had him boxed into a corner there, and he certainly didn't. He just about held on, though, to 6th place this time round as Pies gave it a go. The more they battle, the more chance it is that Arthur Chan will start to get involved and leave Peterson and the rest as well. So if Pies is going to do this, they want to do it quickly. Otherwise, it's going to get more complicated.
Yeah, he needs to try and do something fast here, especially considering they've got Arthur Chan close behind as well. And if they start battling, Arthur's going to really pick up the slack in a hurry and try to make this even more complicated. While we do have the chance, one last time we want to mention Princess Cruises, because they're the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 13, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 16 elegant ships sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. Ooh, and things have spread out for Chris Pies here, so he's going to have to really start to make things up, because now Briggs has the temperature in his tires, and now he's got some distance over the 14.
Absolutely. He'll be much more comfortable in this position than he was a little bit earlier on, when he would have felt like he had that battle sprung on him a little bit here. As you can see on the left-hand side, still wet tyres being used by everybody, I believe, unless some nutter down the field has gone on dries. No, they're all still out there. Justin Sang, by the way, out the race. This will become his drop round. As things stand, he is going to lose 120 points to Bryce Rodriguez on the day. That is very, very damaging indeed for his championship aspirations in the second half of the season, which we're now in.
Yeah, not the way he wanted things to go, especially since it was looking so good early on. Portimao really his only blip.
It was a DQ. Sorry.
It was, yeah. I wasn't sure if we should really mention the reasons, but we'll perhaps discuss them a little bit later. But yeah, he was disqualified from this race, so it has not been a great day for Justin Sang. Meanwhile, as we check out the battle for 12th, Matthew Jokel. Looks like Chris Cook has emerged, finally battling with cars that are on the same strategy as him.
He'd be very pleased about that. Or maybe not, I don't know. But it's for 12th place at the moment. Matthew Jokel has seemed a little bit at sea here in this latter portion of the race. Seems like he's been on the defensive quite a lot in the last half an hour, to be honest. And Cook and Waltman are the ones now trying to take this position off of him. Slightly defensive shape on the way towards the final chicane. Not too aggressively, but slightly. It's going to cost you more time. It's only going to invite more pressure. If you're not sure your rival is going to defend, then it's better to just stay on the racing line, in my opinion, there, and maybe give them space on the inside if they go for a dive. If you sort of half defend, you'll end up losing time, and as I say, inviting more pressure, which he really could do without. He doesn't really have anybody ahead to try and catch to take the pressure and the burden off him. He does have Jonathan Waltman, but he's not really in control of whether Waltman puts pressure on Cook to alleviate pressure on him.
Certainly going to be a tricky one there. Cook needing chameleon eyes for this one with 10 minutes left to go. Has to be on the attack, has to be on the defense at the same time. And he goes way wide coming out of Aintree. Thankfully does not spin it up too much over the curbs and the AstroTurf there. Late braking, though, in behind him. Thankfully, they're not going to make contact, but now Jonathan Waltman discovering what a couple drivers have, and that trying to spot your brake markers in the spray is rather tricky.
That's the kind of dive you've got to make if you are going to go through. He's got to be aggressive. He's got to be late on the brakes. It's got to look, well, it's not got to be dangerous, but it's got to look dangerous in some aspect, because you've got to be so late on the brakes. But Waltman just backing out of that one at the last second there. He gave it a decent go, but not quite this time round. He's not going to have a chance really through here, through Copse Corner, nor through Magnussen Beckett's. But this is exactly what Matthew Jokel was hoping for. I was discussing it just a couple of moments ago. It's exactly what he would have hoped for. Cook just being put under some pressure, and now that gap has opened a little bit between the first and the second drivers in this group.
Waltman's the only one that's down in this group, lost 6 places from the start. Cook up 11, another one tied for a hard charger. No, actually, Jason Finch has 12. And then Jokel has gained 2 positions in this race. You're right, he is much farther apart from Cook this time. In fact, Cook going defensive, coming down into Stowe. That's going to put him offline. He's very slow. He could once again defend down to the inside if he chooses to hug the left-hand side into Vale. He'll just park it right in the middle of the track, forcing Waltman to have to get creative.
This is going to be a switchback sort of line. He can't afford to get on the outside curve there, or the inside one here, or the outside one there. He's done it all right, but by following Cook, again, he's in the problem of not really having a run on him through turn 1. Now through 1 and 2 again. Cook's going to have a better run through here as well. So he's got away with one this time round, but you can run from quite a long way back in the wet weather conditions. And again, he's having another look there. Waltman was quicker through turn 2, making Cook think about him again here. Maybe a stab down the inside at 4 is no. Cook again, though, slightly on the defensive.
Ooh, that looks like a little bit of a better exit. Let's see what happens coming out of Aintree, because it's not quite flat out, I don't think, especially in these conditions. No, it looks like Chris Cook is able to hold Waltman off once more down the Wellington straight. Gets himself a little bit of clear air coming into the braking zone, spotting his marker. and will have to sit behind once more. Matthew Jokel doing his best to utilize this. He's got them back to about 0.7 of a second now.
And he hasn't really had to do anything himself, which is the best thing about it. He's just been almost gifted a bit of a margin here. He's absolutely not going to be complaining about that. It's going to be 12th place all the way home by the looks of things. There he is on the right-hand side. That triple screen display for him. And he's just got eyes forward now. It's remarkable, really, when suddenly that pressure's off of you. Suddenly you stop looking in the mirrors so much. You stop mirror driving so much. And, you know, we haven't seen Jokel take a defensive shape ever since Waltman took his first offensive shape in that 3rd place in this group. It's remarkable how the psychology changes so quickly and how you actually just get a little bit quicker.
It's been helpful. He does look nice and calm there on his webcam as well. So he's using this to his best opportunity at this stage now with only 5 minutes to go. Remember, 2+ minute lap times around here. So that's precious few laps left, almost pushing Chris Cook through the corner. Jonathan Waltman is crawling all over him.
And towards the chicane. Oh, it's one of his better chances. And again, he has a look. And he forces Cook going very deep there. Slides his way through. Now go for the switchback. Get underneath him here for the final corner. You've got to get alongside. No overlap there. And Cook knew that he had to cut that one off. Now he goes a bit wide himself, though. Now he's in the curb. Oh, that was close. That was very close on the front straight.
Couldn't tell if that was a late defense or if he started to lose the car a little bit. Side by side coming down through Abbey Corner. This is going to be a game of chicken. Who can break the latest into Village? Inside is going to be going to Waltman, but he's just slightly behind. Don't run into your competitor. Both of them as deep as they dare. It switches back into the loop once again. This battle will rage on.
Oh, it's a good inside line for Cook there. He parked that exactly where he needed to. Now Waltman needs to get underneath him out of Aintree here. Go for the racing line and cut underneath him. Oh, he's a bit wide. That curb is not going to give you good traction. He's still got a decent exit, though, using a bit of slipstream. And now he might have the inside. There he goes. He's chased across the road down in towards Brooklands. Chased right to the apex of the corner, and he's got it finally.
Took him about half a lap to make it work, but eventually it was there. He's going to be shallow into Luffield as look at Cook go all the way to the outside, trying to open this one up to see if he can get a launch, but it's to no avail. Brett Holmes in the meantime, oh my goodness, coming off the final turn with a massive shunt.
That's a nasty accident there. Oh, his car's absolutely toast. Well, I'll be amazed if he gets home without pitting, Brett Holmes. He doesn't seem to have been in again. He didn't come in, so he is going to soldier on. We'll see how far he gets. Yeah, that was a big impact. But again, shows you how these conditions can make corners that you don't think about before really make them into corners like Woodcote there. And also another description of just how slippery the curbs are, which has been a real factor in this race.
As we come back to Waltman, he's starting to pull away from Chris Cook, so definitely looking like he was being held up in that situation. Trying to see, as we'll get another look at this incident. Yeah, that is about worst case scenario right there. Thankfully, in the virtual world, don't have to worry about any sort of safety, but still a frustrating end to the race.
I was just giggling there at the marshal. Absolutely no reaction. As if he's seen it all before. Yep, there's another one. Straight to the wall.
iRacing only hires the best.
Yeah. Very good. Just made me giggle. Yeah, he's carrying on, to be fair to him, is Brett Holmes. He's only lost one place since his crash. I might imagine he might lose a couple more to Kevin Jokel and Lenny Holland, who aren't that far behind him. But yeah, just before that, by the way, I mean, I don't think I've said it enough. A really great battle between Waltman and Cook there, to be honest. I mean, exactly what wet weather racing can be, especially in GT3 cars. I think sometimes wet weather racing gets a bit of a reputation for making it even more difficult to overtake, if you like, because the line's so narrow. There is only one line, really, in the wet weather. And so I think that does certainly make it a bit more difficult to battle, or at least it has the reputation of such. But this circuit, combined with the wet weather as well, providing a really great battle there between those two. Shame we couldn't have seen more of those, but it was great to focus in on two drivers for a long period of time there and just watch how they worked each other out, and then eventually watch how Waltman got through. It was really, really great battle.
Bryce Rodriguez is coming to the white flag now as he heads through the final corner of Club. he's got it back up to 5 seconds over Robbie Prescott. So his extra margin of safety with the pit stop really didn't matter too much. He still had the pace to absolutely run away with this one. All he needs is to bring it home from here, and even better for him, there is nobody in front of him.
Absolutely nobody in the way of traffic. I thought there'd be a bit more actually in this race. Eric Sutton is up the road, but he's still 20 seconds or so, 15 seconds on the lead lap, so he's going all right. Bryce Rodriguez has driven well, though. The pole position, I think, was really important here. I mentioned it immediately as we got this race underway. The gaps got very large, very quick, and that's what you get here in the wet weather. The distances get bigger. It has stabilised a bit. In fact, even 15, 20 minutes ago, Nicky Chan was just under 29 seconds off the lead, now only 33 off. So actually the progression of those gaps hasn't continued at the rate quite that I thought it would, but the distances immediately got very big, and that immediately put him in pole position. He did have to see off Robbie Prescott, but he's done that pretty comfortably, and to be fair to Prescott, he's seen off the rest as well quite comfortably too.
Yeah, Prescott's had a phenomenal race up there. And honestly, this is a testament to the sort of season that Rodriguez has been having, because this means, if things finish as they are, his drop round after 4 events is going to be a second place. That's incredible.
Yeah, and one of 2 second places, by the way.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And drop week, by the way, of course, denotes your worst score of the season after 4 rounds. That is pretty remarkable for Rodriguez. If that doesn't change, by the way, the possibility of him wrapping it up at the penultimate round is very, very likely.
I'd say so. As short as the seasons are here in the PCA, it's still doable if you can really have incredible consistency, which seems to be one of the strengths of the 24 of Bryce Rodriguez. Just a couple more corners to go as he exits out of Stowe down into the braking. We've seen a few drivers miss, but he's going to hit it just perfectly down across our camera at the apex and gets to celebrate out of club with his 2nd victory of the season and 4th straight podium here.
Well, Bryce Rodriguez, what a great drive. Even had the extra few seconds to take a bit more fuel on during the pit stops as well, just to make absolutely sure he was going to make it home. A brilliant drive of domination from him out front, from the pole position right the way to the very end of the race, now with a 70-point championship margin at the end of the day.
Kerry Brooks also is going to get that podium finish after having to battle with Logan Grotto for, some of the race, although it was kind of from opposite ends of the track. Certainly was an interesting one, as this battle across the line going to stay close between Nicky Chan and Leif Peterson. Leif will finish 9th, and Chan will round out your top 10. From further down in the field, not sure we have too many battles. Looks like Jokel and Waltman going to be close, but it looks like Matthews got this one under control.
He certainly has. He did a good job there, because he's clearly finished ahead of drivers who have got better race pace than him, and that's a compliment to Jokel. I know it sounds like a bit of an insult, but that's a compliment to him. The way he's been able to defend, the way he's been consistent, and he's, held back Waltman and even Christopher Cook, who did fall apart a little bit towards the end of that race, finishing in 14th place. But I quite enjoyed that. The wet weather conditions, typical conditions from here in the UK, throwing up another great race at this brilliant circuit.
And 22 cars finishing on the lead lap. Impressive in wet weather conditions, although we had a few victims. We'll get to them in a second. Up at the front of the field, though, Bryce Rodriguez is going to take victory over Robbie Prescott, extending his points lead. It's a massive gap down to Kerry Brooks there, but Kerry had to fight for that podium, and will probably be pretty pleased that he was able to get that out of it. Logan Crotto gets shuffled back down to 4th as Matthew Siddall winds up still in 5th at the end of things. Thomas Briggs P6 and Chris Pies in 7th. After that, Arthur Chan is 8th, Leif Peterson in 9th, and he'll beat Nicky Chan across the line by about half a second.
Wang finishes just outside of that top 10, ahead of that battle we were watching between Matthew Jokel and Jonathan Waltman. Christopher Cook falling a bit away from that towards the end. Klaus Nielsen finishes 15th, but of Jason Finch, with Jochen Bakker at 17th. Brett Holmes did limp over the line despite his crash through Woodcote late on. He'd finished 18th, better of Kevin Jokel and Lenny Holland.
21st is going to be going to Brett Holmes, with Eric Sutton in 22nd. And you've got Chad Henson I think the last one to actually see the checkered flag there in 23rd. Sang was a disqualification, actually, with the DNF for Lyon, Cowley, Ewing, and Fisk at the back end of the field. Let's see if we've got Bryce Rodriguez. Yes, indeed, we do. We've got him ready to chat with us here. Bryce, congratulations on the win, but we have to ask, the pit stop was significantly longer than most of the other drivers out there. Was that you just playing it very safe, or what was the reasoning?
Yeah, I was playing it super safe for the pit stop. The last thing I wanted was to run out of fuel. So yeah, I played it super safe. I finished the race with quite a bit more fuel than I anticipated. So played it safe, maybe a little bit too safe, but it all worked out in the end. So
you made it look like you're a bit of a rainmeister out there with you and Robbie Prescott finishing 14 seconds ahead of the next nearest car. What's the secret in these slippery conditions? What were you doing differently to everybody else?
I think it's just in the rain, you just have to be super smooth with the balance of the car. It's like you just have half the amount of grip you do in the dry. So it's just being extra careful with anything that you do to the car, whether that's braking, going on the throttle, steering, just everything needs to be super smooth and delicate. You just need to kind of like relax a bit more. I find that I just enjoy the rain more, where some people might not like the rain. I enjoy it, so maybe that kind of helps as well. But I think it's practice, but also just being calm, relaxed, and enjoying sliding the car through the turns and on the track. So
speaking of being smooth, it's been a real steady as she goes season. A second, a first, a second, and a first. Do you feel like you're in a groove right now?
I think I'm in some sort of groove. Yeah, it seems like whenever I come in second, I just want to come back and win the race, and then somehow I get beat in the next race after. But it's been great to finish, in the top two for the first rounds of the season. So just hoping to keep that consistency throughout the next races to come.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing if you can manage that impressive feat. And again, congratulations on another win.
Thank you.
Bryce Rodriguez, P1 here today. And he was followed home by Robbie Prescott, who was the other one that was incredibly fast. I believe Ewan has caught up with him.
Yeah, good evening, Robbie. Congratulations on second place. How are you feeling after that race? Because on any other day, without Bryce Rodriguez, you could have won by about 10 seconds there.
Yeah, I'm just happy with the podium. I know Bryce, he's a respectable dude and he's pretty legit. So when you're going up against some guys like that, obviously you just got to keep it clean the whole race and go for podiums. I know Bryce is the man to beat this season, but if I can sneak in a win here or there like Daytona and just keep getting podiums, I'll be pretty happy with the rest of the season if it goes that way.
Yeah, your second podium of the season now. You move up to second place in the championship, 70 points behind Bryce Rodriguez. Do you think there's anything you can do to try and catch him?
I'm going to try my best. Obviously, take each race at a time, but I'm a pretty competitive person. I don't like giving up, so I'll try to battle him to the best I can throughout the rest of the season here and see what happens.
All right, we look forward to seeing it. Congratulations on second place here tonight, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks at Road America.
Thank you. Shout out to my Solpec boys and all my friends watching back home.
Thanks very much. Robbie Prescott, second place here tonight at Silverstone.
He's followed up by Kerry Brooks, who managed to get the third, but had to work for it a bit. Kerry, it looked like between your call for the early stop and battling for other cars, you had a headache of a day.
Oh, man, that was really, really fun and really, really challenging, Joe. Yeah, I mean, I got held up in a few spots. I made a few of my own mistakes, but I think in the end, I had to pull the undercut. I knew I was quicker than Logan. He got out ahead of me when that incident happened on lap one, and lo and behold, I made a couple mistakes, and he shot out ahead of me after his pit stop, and I had to grind it out the next few corners and make sure that I got past him.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because you obviously had tires that were much more up to temperature. Were you cognizant of that when you went to the outside of Brooklands?
I ignored what my tires were or weren't. It was just, it's got to stick, and I got to hold, and I got to go. I mean, that's really what it came down to. In the pit, I only changed my left rear, but I don't know. I would hope that he was going to be on a little bit cooler tires. I don't know what he changed either, but yeah, that was really fun and really hard.
Well, it's been a pretty decent start to the season, other than missing out on race one at Daytona. Are you looking forward to next time out in 2 weeks when we head off to Road America?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, everybody, this will be a tough one. I think everybody knows Road America really well. So it's going to come down to execution as much as anything. So it should be pretty spectacular.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Look forward to seeing you there. And again, congratulations on a podium today.
Thank you, Joe. I'd like to thank Princess for their sponsorship of this series. Of course, everybody at PCA, UCR team, and my coach, Nikki Chan at last 10th.
Great stuff there from Kerry Brooks. And that is going to wrap us up for tonight. As we said, we'll be back for Road America in 2 weeks' time for the Pro Class. So that'll be March 5th. So make sure and tune in for that. And thankfully, that's going to be dry, as drivers are probably ready for that, I'm sure, after a very damp Silverstone. But we've got more racing coming here in the wet in jolly old England, because tomorrow night, February 20th, the club class will try and tackle this place. Big thank you goes to the steering committee at PCA Sim Racing, as well as our team tonight, Ramiro and Ewan. And thank you so much for watching tonight's broadcast of PCA Sim Racing. I'm Joe Peak, and until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.